Today we're taking a look at some of the big updates coming to WWE 2K24. We have the interviews from both Screen Rant and WrestleZone that give us a lot of insight into what the game is going to look like, feel like, new features, new updates. So let's get into it because we're highlighting some of the key things. If you guys end up enjoying this video, please hit the subscribe button, it helps a lot, and hit that like button too. Let's go. The interview over at WrestleZone had Lionel Jinx and Brian Williams interview talking about the game. Special referee was one of the first things they talked about. The match type itself, they talked about some of the regular things like counting the pins, so fast and slow pins. We're also going to be able to do rope checks, which is really nice. So if we are going to get maybe a crawl animations and breaking up the pins, your referee is going to be able to do that. They talked about the ring out counts being there too. So like we've had in the old games with special guest referee, doing those really quick 1 to 10 counts or going super slow. They talked about how you have the freedom to enforce or not enforce the rules. So if you want to be able to have DQs right away, you can, or you could just simply ignore everything and just go crazy and no one gets disqualified. And they did mention that when you select the referee for the match, they automatically are outfitted with the ref attire. This is wonderful. This is one of the main things that I love to see, is keeping it with the product itself and having more of the simulation style. Where I'm concerned, they haven't mentioned what matches are going to be available for special guest referee. That's the one thing that worries me. We'll probably find out in a week or two, but I'm a little concerned that this is going to be straight up one-on-one special guest referee. Will I be happy the mode is back? Absolutely. I love special guest referee, but I will be a little disappointed if I can't do special ref in a tag, triple threat, fatal four-way at the very least. But we do know that it is also confirmed to be in universe mode. Mygm is a question mark. Lionel Jinx noted that they're trying to make sure that what you experience in exhibition, for example, is seamless, is more coherent and tied together with everything else in the game, which is a big thing to do, and it's not easy. And they also have like 8 months of development for this. So I hope it's in Mygm, and I hope it's more than just one-on-one. Now with weapons, we're getting the updated weapon wheel. We're gonna see new weapons, thankfully. It's been a long time. I'm really glad that they are doing this. They're giving this a refresh. And in the interview with WrestleZone, they talk about any object you're holding except one can be thrown. What do you think the one is? I have no idea. Trash can? Kendo stick? They should be able to throw those. The chairs you should be able to throw. You know what I hope they add in? It's probably not there. Chair at ringside. The announcer's chair. I hope we can pick that thing up and just chuck it and deck the guy in the face. And like we've heard previously with the reveals that like there's soda can machines backstage, you're going to be able to throw soda cans, and they've also included that you can duck and dodge and in some cases even catch the weapons. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Like updated weapon wheel, getting new weapons in there, always exciting. That freshens things up a lot because a lot of times we're doing no DQ matches, no holds barred, but we're still going to have those dodge mechanics still in the game. But if I'm going to be able to like catch a chair that's thrown at me, that's going to be fun, especially if you're doing like online, if it works. Now there was also an interview with Screen Rant with Brian and Lionel Jinx, and they were talking about some of the match types. And one of the match types they noted was going to have to do with gauntlet match. And Brian Williams talked a little bit more about gauntlet. Now, out of all of the match types, I don't know where I fall with what's my favorite, what I'm most excited for. Referee, yes. Gauntlet match, though, has been on my wish list for many years. I love that. I love elimination style matches. I've always wanted a gauntlet match, and this has me a little excited for what's to come. So about gauntlet match, Brian Williams said that we have the return of the gauntlet match, which has 3 different variations of that. So with 3 variations of the gauntlet match, I wonder if this means for the amount of opponents you can have in a gauntlet. That would really just make me happy, because if we can go from a 1v3, 1v4 or 1v5 gauntlet match, that's going to be awesome. And Brian talked about there's 2 new match sites that have never before been in the franchise, in the casket and the ambulance match. And there's reports and the interviews online too, talking about how you can interact with the ambulance, you can interact with the casket, basically using them as a weapon. My understanding is that I would be able to like throw my opponent into the ambulance like they do with the backstage in the cars and be able to interact that way, throw them into the ambulance. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, super finishers is a big one that we got from this interview for WrestleZone. And I have some questions about it. I mean, we're gonna find out eventually how this thing works. It seems very exciting, but we'll have to be cautiously optimistic if you can like spam it or not. So with super finishers, certain superstars on the roster will have by default. Brian Williams was talking about this himself, and he says that, but any character you create or edit, you can freely add to their moveset. So it's not going to be locked to just Cody having a super finisher. You can give it to your creations. You can go in and edit the roster and add it to anybody you want. But by default, certain wrestlers are going to have them right away. Characters can hold up to 2 super finishers. It's the coup de grace, he says. When used, it should effectively put the person down for the count. Cody Rhodes is the Crossroads Trinity. So in the game, he'll have that as a super finish. And if you have 3 stored finishers in your stock, your super finish becomes enabled. So when you hit it, even with an opponent with resiliency, Brian says that it is so super, so powerful, it'll temporarily knock out that character's resiliency for a period of time. Now, Lionel Jinx chimed in as well and added in that visually it has some effects. The audio is changed when you're gonna hit a super finisher. The HUD lights up with electricity when you hit it. So they're really making this a very big thing and a big deal if you're gonna be late into the match and you can hit your super finisher. I really like this. My concern is with spamming it. So if I start a match, and this would be my question to the devs, if I start a match off with 3 stored finishers and I'm using Cody, can I just hit my Crossroads Trinity 5 seconds into the match? I mean, players will have their option, right? Because we could start our matches off with 0 finishers or 1, 2, 3. And it'd be kind of cool in some instances where I can just come in and hit Roman Reigns with a Crossroads Trinity. But I wonder if there is going to be some limitations put in place, because I would worry that, well, it gets a little too gimmicky. But I do think it's a really cool addition to the game. I want to see how it works. I'm excited for things like the audio being enhanced or changed when you're going to hit a Crossroads Trinity, as an example. I'm a big proponent for having more of that lifelike experience, especially from the audio side, so that the crowd is piped in more. There's more hype behind it. Maybe the commentary team is going to make different commentary notes to it when you're going to hit your super finisher. They then talked about how there's 6 new paybacks and 2 are unlocked through My Rise. But when you unlock them, you'll use them in all areas of the game. And there's also going to be just a slew of quality of life improvements. And we know from the press releases that My Rise is going to have 2 stories, 1 male, 1 female, like we've seen in 22 and 23. There's going to be voiceover work for the likes of Roman Reigns, different legends. Mick Foley was mentioned as well. I hope that there's going to be a lot more to this. Having the unlock so we can see that we're going to get more unlockables through My Rise again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it incentivizes players to go through the My Rise story, to get exclusive arenas, character models, etc., all unlocked in the game. The paybacks sound cool. They go more in depth in the interview, and I'll link it below if you guys want to check it out. Then the topic of My Faction came up, and I will credit the interviewer from WrestleZone for bringing this up. Thank you very much, because this is a question mark I have. Still wondering about it, what it's going to look like. But I have some hope here. So with the question of My Faction, they asked if we are going to see any changes to it with regard specifically to the alt attires, the character models that were locked in the mode, and they asked if there was anything done this year to allow these alt models to be used in other modes in 24. Lionel Jinx replied by saying, "We haven't announced anything yet, but we hope to please people with a future announcement. Stay tuned." Kind of a wink and a nod. So the impression I got, and you guys let me know too, but my impression of this was it's changing. We know that we are going to get an online market for the shop for My Faction, presumably being able to buy individual cards, individual characters using our My Faction rewards, our credits, and being able to just buy the packs like we normally do, but also buy the characters. If they are doing it now where you're going to be able to buy Triple H 98 or DX version through the My Faction shop, this is going to be great, because this is what players have been asking for, which is I unlock somebody or I grind it out and I finally unlock Triple H. I want to be able to have him in the rest of the game. It sounds like they are going to do that. We won't know for sure until it happens. But where I have some reservation is, how's that going to look? Is it going to be costing players way more? If they can grind it all out and just keep racking up their points, then they're not spending real money, and that's fine. But are they going to be probably having to spend real money? And what's that price tag going to be to players? Is it going to be really, really high? Because we saw 2K release just a updated version of Bad Bunny for $12. But I will say, if they're going to be unlocked in the base game, then at least players are going to have the option to get that model or not get that model. and that's what I like, or grind out the mode and not spend real money and real dollars in it. Then we got into the topic of MyGM. Now we've seen a lot of updates with regards to MyGM in terms of getting trades and new features updated in there, contracts getting updated and more. And the topic of online has to take a backseat, says the devs. So we're not going to get MyGM online this year, but they did say that this is something that they would want to look at for future games, maybe even 2K25. Lionel Jinx also is, what I appreciate is that they talk kind of candidly and openly about how, like, hey, we have like 8 months to get a new game out every year. And while players and myself and bozos like me, we've got a laundry list of things that, why isn't this updated, fixed, etc. I want those things addressed. It sounds like this year a lot of things are going to get addressed, but I also try to keep in mind that they're on such a tight time frame, and not knowing how game development works, putting in an online feature for MyGM, probably a lot of work, and maybe it's something that they're just going to roadmap and say that might come out next year, maybe online for Universe mode, etc. And then with Universe mode, there's a lot of interesting pieces here. So the devs talk about how they added more rivalry actions. So that list that we have already, they're going to expand on that, and they're going to add things like run-ins, money in the bank cash-ins are in there too. And they also said that it's going to support all the new match types within Universe. Thank goodness, because that was my concern, is that you wouldn't get that. Like, referee would be locked out, they couldn't make it work. They are making it work. All 4 new match types are going to be in there, so Universe is looking pretty healthy, as long as it's not glitched, as long as it's just all steady and good, and I'm okay. They talked about how they're expanding on what they added last year with the rivalry actions. Double title matches are in there too, and they said that those are huge improvements and we focused on this year, and it will make Universe more in tune with the rest of the game. The only thing not mentioned in the interviews, either from WrestleZone or Screen Rant, with Universe mode, promos. This has come out constantly, at least in the comments here, that everyone's wishing and hoping for promos to come back. Since it's not mentioned, since on the press releases and in the interviews, they've mentioned things like the rivalry action list, and they've talked about double title matches, which is great. Those are great things. They never mentioned promos. Because promos are such a big deal, I think that if they were in there, they would want to talk about that, and they want to let players know that they're in the game. However, I still have a little bit of hope here that promos or some form of promos is going to be in the rivalry action list, because in 23, when they gave us that feature and you can freely go and pick all these cutscenes, they're doubling down on that. Well, they already had quite a few in there. So if we're going to get the existing list and then they're going to 2x it and they're going to give us even more, you got to figure that they're going to have some form of promo in there. So it might be there. It just might not be in the traditional way of add a promo halfway through the card like we've seen in the other games. It might be through the action items where you're going to call out your opponent and then it will initiate one of the cutscenes. Now there's a couple of more updates in here too. Brian Williams did mention that ramp facing camera is making a return, and it will be an option players can turn on and off. Lionel Jinx talked about how, like with gauntlet matches too, you can see who's coming down the ramp, and it's one of those presentation qualities. They said it changes the look of the game. And Brian continued to say that it also makes choosing the arena that much more important, because now you're seeing the stage area and getting the visual, and it matters now. That is something that I would agree with. When you pick an arena, you pick Raw, you pick SmackDown, you pick a pay-per-view or a custom arena or an AEW arena, it's great for the entrances, but then you're in the ring and it's kind of just whatever. It doesn't really matter or play into the presentation. We're going to be able to toggle the presentation a little bit this year. We're going to have that camera being able to change it when we feel like it, it seems. And so for that presentation change, if we're getting that old camera angle and it works in every match type, including Royal Rumble, gauntlet match, it's going to make capturing content way more fun. It's going to make the game feel more fun. It's going to feel a little different at times, and having the options to just move that camera around, it's more dynamic. It makes the presentation feel better and feel refreshed. I really hope though it does work in everything, that it's seamless. So not just exhibition, and also every match type. Like, I'm wondering about war games. Can we change the camera angle for war games? Can we change the camera angle for Elimination Chamber? Wonder if we can, or is that going to really mess it up because they have these giant structures? Hell in a Cell as well. Hopefully it works for everything. I'd be really pumped to see what that looks like. Now with the Screen Rant article, they did talk about Creation Suite very briefly. Lionel Jinx said Quick Save is now going to be added into Creation Suite. And he said, and there's a quote in here, that with Quick Save, We've seen so many complaints year after year about someone who lost their save data because they accidentally backed out while creating or spending an hour creating their character, but you hit the little Y or triangle button, it'll save it and you move on, and that gives you the freedom to keep playing around without the fear of losing all of your hard work. Love this. Really want to know, are we getting logo limits, increases in there? Are they going to up all of it? Because if we're going to get like 100 slots again, everyone complains that it's not enough. Hopefully those things are increased, new hairstyles, more quality of life improvements overall when it comes to that. But I think for a lot of people that do a lot of detailed creations, they lose stuff like create an arena. I've done that when I just mess around with creating a wrestler. I am terrible at it, but I have had that happen where I'm like, stuff has crashed on me. So I'd be happy if they're gonna offer quick saves. And the other thing is with create a sign. This is another thing that they talked about in the press releases, but create a sign is new for us this year, they said. So not only are you creating your character, but you want to really sell what your superstar's persona is when you're creating this character. And no better way than to just be like, all right, I'm gonna create this sign. So you can upload an image or create one in the game, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to sign these 4 signs to my character and see them populated through your entrance or while you're playing matches. It's a great addition for us, and just the amount of content that we keep adding every single year, from hairstyles to attires, just the level of detail that we offer in this game is unparalleled. And there's way more about the different additions, what comes in everything, all of the original press release stuff for all the match types and modes. So click this video because I go way in depth on that, giving you everything you need to know about it. Have a great day, everybody. See ya.